Welcome to Transformation with Martine. Martine Emmons is a transformational life coach who broke free from childhood abuse, sexual trauma, and overcame cancer to become a powerful force of healing and hope for others. Martine describes traumatic events as fierce emotional tsunamis. They can leave impending doom and destructive tidal waves of emotions that hit you when you least expect it. Martine helps her clients dive into the depths of their trauma and pain as she stands fiercely advocating for them to shine a light on those experiences and find the lesson in the pain. She serves as a beacon of hope that guides you to see the strength, lessons, and purpose that can be born from the pain. You can feel alive with purpose again when you awaken your dormant strength, step into your power with a sense of peace, and discover a new wave of hope with the right tools and support. Martine and her guests are here shining their lights today through empowering stories of hardship and transformation to inspire you to find hope and to see that there is a beautiful blue ocean of serenity, happiness, and fulfillment in your future. Transformation with Martine starts now.
Welcome everyone to Transformation with Martine. This is where we overcome everything and compromise nothing. For those of you who don't know, my show is every Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. And I'm on the East Coast, so I always say 1 p.m. first Eastern. And also for those of you that don't know, my show is about hope. My guests that I invite on and myself, we are warriors. We've been through a lot in this life. And we together collectively believe that no matter what you've been through, you can get back up from anything. We are proof. So without further ado, I want to introduce my guest. He goes by Mr. J. He is a wonderful relationship coach. And please introduce yourself a little bit better than I did. Yeah.
Well, I say all the time, listen, first of all, I'm a dad, so I have a lot of corny dad jokes. So I'm going to have to ask you to excuse me in advance. But I always say, you can call me Coach J, Mr. J, any J, just don't call me late for dinner. But I am what's called an intrapersonal relationship coach and a betrayal trauma practitioner. Mm-hmm. And so what an intrapersonal relationship coach is all relationships start with ourselves. The relationship we have with ourselves sets the tone and standard for all other relationships around us. So I like to work on the relationship that people have with themselves. That's number one. That's what I've been doing for a while. And then by actually happenstance, believe it or not, I was Googling some stuff a couple of years ago, and I found this wonderful, wonderful TED Talk. And long story short, I got involved with this organization and fell in love with betrayal trauma and trauma itself and what it does. Because let's face it, I don't care who you are, what you are, we all have experienced betrayal. We've all experienced trauma. We've all experienced betrayal trauma to some degree or another. So I was fascinated with the topic. And so I got certified to become a betrayal trauma practitioner. And so now I do both of those things. So I'll get calls from people that, they're about to give a speech and they just need, some quick pick me ups and an ego boost or what have you. And then I'll get other people that, are all under the spectrum of finding out, they've been betrayed. So, there's people that are on the phone while they're bear hugging the toilet, vomiting because they just found out. And then there's people I talk to that are 30 years out of betrayal. And for just some reason, they're stuck. So, so that's what I've been doing. I love it. And I won't say I'm good at it, but I'm here and I've stayed. And so I think I do help people. So actually I help people help themselves.
Yeah, well, you're relatable though. See, I mean, to me, that's what it's all about is, for our clients is telling our story. They don't really care so much where we are now. They want to know that they can get to where you are now.
Absolutely. And I found that relatability is far more desired even over likability.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. I know that's what's drawn me to the coaches that I'm in, the community that I'm in is people that I can just be like, oh man, okay. They didn't just get lucky. They had to go through a lot to get where they are today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, when you're talking to somebody who understands firsthand your experience, your conversation's at a completely different energy level.
Yeah.
most certainly.
100%. 100%. So would you mind sharing I will be really honest, and I know that you want to focus on the now and the good and all that, but your story was heartbreaking to me. Heartbreaking it is. And my story isn't pretty either, but yours is particularly heartbreaking, especially being so young. Would you mind going into that and telling us what you've been through? And okay.
Yeah, no problem. I think first and foremost, there's always a setup phase. So there's a setup phase when you're younger, whether it's your attachment style, or let's just say there's even a setup phase with a spousal betrayal. There's always something that, there's a setup stage. And I think absolutely nothing at all against my parents in any capacity, because nobody brings children into the world to, to not raise them in the most loving way possible. But I think because of the situation that my parents did bring children into the world, they weren't really on the same page a lot of arguing and things. So already there was the setup stage where my attachment issue was not confident. It was not secure. So that's number one.
Gotcha.
And then number two, so when we were about 6, I was about 6.5, and we owned a home. And we left for the weekend. And when we came back, unbeknownst to us, the house caught on fire over the weekend. So when we pulled into the driveway, there was really nothing left standing but the chimney. And the reason I say that was significant, because first of all, no child that age wants to see their parent crying and devastated. And that's what my parents were doing. They lost everything. Family heirlooms are their kids' first haircuts. We lost all of our toys. I mean, there was nothing left but the chimney. And you also, as a 6.5-year-old, you feel hopeless and helpless, and you can't help. And a child, unlike an adult, as we all know, they start to personalize. So, was there something I could have done? Should I, A, B, and C, which obviously when you're an adult, you're thinking, well, that's ridiculous to have that thought. You're not thinking that's ridiculous at 6.5. What can I do to make, my parents feel better? Yada, yada. Anyways, moving on, I went and we stayed with an uncle of mine for a little while. And because we had no place to go, we didn't own the house, so there's no insurance. I think we were renting to own. And, my father, he was a hardworking man, but he did not have any lucrative career by any means. So we kind of hopped around from, getting things from the Salvation Army or family handouts, whoever could help us out. And when one time when I was at my uncle's house, actually multiple times when I was at my uncle's house, one of the things that he would do to allow me to show him my appreciation was to take me into his bedroom at night and thank him. And I always say, I don't know what's worse, Martine, the actual abuse or the silent internal screaming the next morning at the breakfast table when you know what happened last night, but everybody's eating and saying, pass me the milk and the Cheerios. Yeah. So moving on, we wound up getting an apartment in the city. And again, I nothing at all against my mother in any capacity or my father, but I think my mother kind of started to sow her wild oats and feel that, geez, I missed out on a lot. And so she kind of got into more of like the partying mode where she wanted to kind of, party. She never did. She was born and raised on a farm. A big part of me can't blame her. But along with those parties came, a lot of middle of the night taps on my bedroom door where I was open and susceptible to whoever wanted to come in and, do whatever they chose and pleased. So in all of this, I had a list when I was younger. And so I was kind of thrown into special ed for a little while. And I always tell people special ed today is far different from the special ed of years ago. I mean, years ago, you were thrown into special ed with everyone who had anything, usually with one teacher, way, way at the other side of the school, past all the classrooms, past the library, past the office. I mean, you felt like a freak. Like I said, and with everybody in that room, no matter what their challenge was, physical, emotional, mental, what have you. And so on that time that I really started to just fear a lot, question a lot. And I was also very close with my younger sister, who I tried to help take care of, during a lot of this mess.
Yes.
And I don't know where you want me to stop. In my very early teen years, wind up moving out, which left me homeless for a little while. And then it wasn't until I got robbed at gunpoint twice where I decided I got to make some differences in my life. I can fill all kinds of gaps in, but I don't want to sit here and talk for an hour and a half.
Right. Got you. Yeah. We have stuff in common. And I especially, like you're talking about, just how is it the next day when you're thinking about these things and nobody's really thinking about it. It's like they seem to be past it or not even knowing what's going on. That is a rough thing, very rough thing. So I didn't leave home as soon as you did, but I was 17. So there's definitely like take care of yourself and adapting to a world on your own and trying to figure things out. And I remember my dad dropping me off. It was like in the middle of the night, pouring rain, and the mattress that I had going into this apartment was soaking wet by the time I got there. And I remember just getting in there. What do I do? And trying to find the lights, getting in there, because he just basically dropped me off. And I just remember crying all night long. I'm like, what am I going to do? Everything I have is wet. Everything is, what am I going to do? But then it's like, we are warriors. We're survivors. We find a way. So we're going to take a break. But when we come back, I would love to know if, like for me, for example, I always seem to see this light somewhere, even if I was like, felt like I was in a cave and just gloom was around me or fear was around me. I always seem to see this light. And maybe it was the same for you. I'd love to talk about that a little bit when we get back.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thank you so much, everyone. And we'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martine, where we overcome everything and compromise nothing. My guest today is Mr. J, and he has been sharing his story. And before we left on break, we mentioned that sometimes it is hard being in the midst of a traumatic situation and everybody in your household kind of acting like everything's normal, and it really isn't, is a hard thing. And I had said that I always saw a light. There was always something telling me that it'd be okay. And Jay, did you have that same thing? Like maybe that there was something that told you it'd be all right?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I did not at all. Now, I was raised, believe it or not, and I know there's a lot of contradiction and juxtaposition with all this other stuff, but I was raised in a very, very spiritual home. The outer tones were extremely spiritual. The practicing was a different story, but the outer tones were extremely spiritual. So in those times where I was deeply at my worst or saddened, I probably knew that I was being watched by, a higher power, which gave me, certainly probably some comfort at times. Certainly when you're younger, you'd like something a little bit more tangible, a little bit more material. But I'm going to be honest with you, that's actually strengthened my spiritual relationship tremendously, because I think, and not to get all spiritual, but I think sometimes if we are going to trust, if you believe in a higher power, if you believe in God, if you are going to trust, that has to again be, there's no substitute for experience. So you just can't trust God because my parents trusted God. It reminds me one time where my daughter this summer, who was 4 years old, and she had on her swimmy. We're outside in our pool. Yeah. And I said, here, jump to Papa. And she said, no, because I'll go under the water. And I said, I know you will. You're going to go underwater, but then Papa's going to make sure that I bring you up and you're okay. Because I wanted her to know that there might be a dip, but she's going to be risen back up. And that's what I think spirituality taught me, is that no matter how deep I get, no matter how low I go or dip, I'm going to be lifted back up.
Yeah. I guess I felt the same way, that it would just be okay somehow. Didn't know exactly how.
And it doesn't feel good in the moment.
No.
It doesn't feel good in the moment because, conceptually we're using our brain. How am I going to get out of this? How am I going to pay next month's rent? What am I going to eat tomorrow? How am I going to save myself from that? We don't, of course, we're thinking with our own currency, not on the currency of spirituality or what have you. So, faith plays a large role in my life and always has. And primarily because it's been tested all of my life.
Right. And that's how we learn. The lessons is how we learn, and that's something that one of my master coach, who I got my master's certification with and coaching certification, and who I've done a lot of my work with, he says, you cannot be grateful for the lessons and hate the teacher.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Or you cannot truly love yourself and hate the experiences that shape you,
Right.
Certainly. No, absolutely. Sorry for interrupting you.
Oh, no. That's exactly, either way you look at it, it sums up basically the same thing. If we can be grateful for all that we have been through, it carries us into purpose. Because I know I wouldn't, I'm sure you would not be doing what you're doing today if you just had this easy childhood or perfect time.
Yeah. And so sometimes you can find yourself saying, well, geez, I just wish I didn't have to go through that. And that's right. That's right. Hey, in a perfect world, none of us would have went through anything we're doing. But the fact is we did. So now what are we choosing to do with it? But a lot of life's hardships, I look at it as, when you go to the gym, well, I guess there are some people that love lifting weights, but like nobody sits there and loves to struggle. I mean, it hurts.
Right.
You're lifting these weights. But it's doing you good. You're getting a workout, but it's doing you good. Well, sometimes when we go through this misery and betrayal and trauma and all this hurt in life, it doesn't feel good at all, but it's giving us a life workout. We're going to reap the benefits of it.
Absolutely.
Providing we do something good with it, because we could also become jaded, stuck, miserable, like the Grinch at Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. And we can always reframe things. Like you're talking about the gym. One of my mentors is Lisa Nichols. I work with her on her team as well. And she says that, what she does instead of saying she's getting a workout in, she's getting her sexy back. And I like that. It's like we can reframe anything the way, to make it feel good to us.
Oh, yeah. Right? And by the way, reframing is a big chunk of how I help people, because our thoughts are so ridiculously powerful. So anyways, but that's neither here nor there.
No, that's a very good point. So I just want to mention something just fun before we go into the next bit here, though. But because Sex and the City just came out with a new era or whatever, I'd love to hear about your time on there, just because it seems so fun right now.
Yeah. I was on a couple episodes of Sex and the City. 99.9% of it, I'm sure, was all on the, cut on the floor, post-production. But I met all the girls, all wonderful, especially Samantha is the sexy one, or supposed to be like the sexy one.
Samantha?
I'm sorry, who's the tall one? She was on Mannequin back in the 80s.
The one who played Samantha, right? God, what is her name? She's not on this new one.
Oh, she's not?
Remember. No.
Whoa. Okay.
I can't remember her name. Oh, shoot.
Anyway, no, they were all wonderful, all nice. In between takes, they would be throwing grapes at, some people to catch, or, talking. There was one that kind of retreated back to her trailer in between scenes, and she really wasn't that interested in meeting all of us commoners, but I won't mention her name because maybe she was having a bad day and I don't want to put anything, bad taste. I was on Sex and the City probably about 4 times, Criminal Intent, a couple of movies. That's why I actually left upstate New York to pursue film and television. Close to New York City. So it was a wonderful life, not to quote a movie, but it was a lifetime ago. Now I got kids and family, and I'm coaching.
Totally different thing, but it's just kind of fun, especially since this just came out. And I'm is there any episodes we could catch you though?
You know what? I think there's a Sailor episode, Fleet Week, I think it was. If you literally pause the VCR at you, I mean, I'm a fluffy white thing dancing way in the background. That's about as much as close as I got. So no, to answer your question.
Okay.
No, all I know is I got paid well and I enjoyed my time on the set.
Yeah, I bet. Oh, it's fun. Totally fun.
It was a lot of fun.
I bet that. Yeah, it's just a show that my sister got me into. I don't think I'd love it at first. The first few seasons, I didn't love it so much, and after that, and especially Big and Carrie, oh Lord, has sold. He's such a fine-looking man that it just.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
no, so I don't unfortunately follow Sex and the City as much, but it's very. Do you remember like Luke and Laura? Maybe I'm dating myself. Back in the
that was General Hospital days, right?
Okay. Is that what kind of like Carrie and Big is? Like they're the couple?
Sort of. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think
Luke and Laura were getting married. Like that was all over the TV. Like, tune in next Friday, Luke and Laura are, getting married.
Yeah, I don't think Luke was I don't know, Big did a lot of things that were definitely not so good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I don't know. I remember that much more than I do the whole General Hospital part. But I do remember thinking, oh, that was cool. I do remember watching it. Yeah. So anyway, fun stuff, Yeah. Yeah. Go down memory lane. So, you were talking about the people I've always worked with have pretty much, my ideal client is someone who has overcome trauma and they're on the other side. So trauma has always been my person as well. But how would you describe betrayal trauma?
Yeah, see, so this is what's interesting. So betrayal trauma has everything, all the same language, characteristics, struggles as trauma, only there's more of a intentionality to it. There's more of a personal feel to it. But now this is what's interesting. I'm going to contradict what I just said. Okay. Even though there's a personal feel to it, even though there's an intentional feel to it, betrayal trauma 9 times out of 10 is not intentional. It's not personal. When I'll just use a typical male, female, heterosexual example. When a husband is found to have a sex addiction and his wife discovers that he was with 20 prostitutes in the past 2 years, he didn't call that prostitute and say, I'm going to intentionally hurt my wife. I mean, he had an addiction. Of course, we can go back and forth if people think, sex addiction exists. But so that's what I say is that, even though there's an intentional feel to it, or a personal feel to it, the behavior wasn't intentional. No, just like parenting, nobody says, oh, I'm going to have a kid so I can bring them into the world so I can abuse them and screw up their life, so which goes back to what I was saying before, is so many things that we think about, we have to reframe our thought, because that's what we're thinking. How could you do that to me? Well, hold on a minute. He didn't do that to you. He did it to himself. You just happen to be a default product that's getting the
that's the way to look at it.
Or how could he do that when I thought he loved me? Well, he did love you. He just didn't love himself. Or let me compare myself to the person that you were with. Well, why? You're going to compare yourself to a chemical, because 9 times out of 10, it was adrenaline that got him to do what he did. So are you going to compare yourself to a chemical? So, there's a lot of these things that we talk about and we, personalize, but it's nothing to do at all with the intentionality. But betrayal trauma absolutely has intentionality behind it, or the feel of it.
Yeah. That's so much, there's so much there, like to separate ourselves out of it, even though it's hurt. Say if I was the wife or whatever, I would definitely be hurt by it, but I knew it really has nothing to do with me, at least the growth that I've had. But a lot of people won't feel that way because they're insecure, because they don't think that they're enough. And that's the part to really figure out there. It's like, well, you got to get yourself right.
Yeah. And now take into consideration all the other things too. Were you financially relying on this person? Was this, especially if you came from like an attachment style when you were younger that wasn't secure? Did you put this person on, say, a hero status? And now this knight in shining armor status that they once had, that saves you from all of the trauma and drama in your childhood. Now they're the very ones that hurt you the most. So your life is just complete in chaos. I tell people all the time that, our life is like a very neatly jam-packed filing cabinet. And when betrayal comes in, it's like somebody takes that drawer, walks up a mountain and turns it upside down. You got files and papers that are strewn all over for miles and miles. You don't know who you are, what you are, where you are. And if you do start to piece your life back together, what files are now going to suit this new 2.0 self? I mean, it just completely destroys, devastates, and damages every fiber of you, from a psychological perspective, a spiritual perspective. I mean, think of how many people say, God, I prayed for this person. I thought you brought this person in my life. So now, did you betray me? I mean, you question every fiber of your being. Take away all this, the dopamine and the cortisols and the oxytocins and all that are completely jumbled now like a ball of rubber band.
Right. That's a really, really good way to look at it. Files just being thrown around the mountain. You have so many things to sort through.
Yeah, because then you're like, wait a minute, I had that file here. What were you doing when that file was here? Was it even real? What, I mean, the first few weeks of betrayal trauma are, I don't judge anybody who, well, I don't judge anybody regardless, but I don't judge anybody's actions. And I've heard and seen some pretty people lighting cars on fire, running over their spouses. I understand it. I mean, this completely destroys the core of who you thought you were.
Yeah. Well, how do you start? When you find this out, what would be one of the first steps that you would tell somebody?
Yeah, well, it all depends because, they might say, listen, I can't get any sleep. I have extreme insomnia. Or some people say, I for the first time ever, I'm experiencing panic attacks. I never even knew what a panic attack felt like until this happened. Or, and then it all depends because, like, are you going to work on your relationship? Are you thinking of leaving your relationship? But at the same token, I tell people don't make any big decisions the first few weeks. So like this is this tightly wound ball of chaos. Do you have young kids? I mean, there's a million variables that go into what I tell somebody. But one of the first things I do try to do is just tell people to physically ground themselves. Our body, our systems, our fight or flight, are hijacked. Our brain is hijacked. We're not thinking at all with our frontal cortex whatsoever. It's all the amygdala, which is our primal brain. So you are just in fight or flight. How do I get safe? And one of the things I do is do your best. Try not to think about a lot of things, including trying to put the pieces together of what you just discovered. Because to be honest with you, that drives people crazy in and of itself. Why did he do that? When did it happen? Or she, whatever. So I would get all that, whatever, and realize, you know what? You are not right now. There is not a wild, hungry tiger in your bedroom growling and staring at you. Take a deep breath, calm down. Let's do this at first. And then we can start moving forward with how we're going to heal.
Yes. Very good advice. Kind of take a step back. So we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we'll talk more about betrayal trauma, because I think it's a topic that people could definitely learn more about.
Yeah. Thank you. Awesome.
Thank you, everyone. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martine, where we overcome everything and compromise nothing. We've been over here on the break talking about chocolate. Sounds good, doesn't it? So anyway, we have been talking about betrayal trauma and steps that we can take, and knowing that if someone betrays us, it really has nothing to do with us. It's them and things that they need to work out. It doesn't mean that it's easy on us, but it really has nothing to do with us. So my guest, Mr. J, has been talking about steps to take and how he would help his clients. And so Jay, you've given us some beginning steps, which is like to step back a bit, breathe, don't make any rash decisions. How would you go from there?
Well, again, very good question. I'd have to probably look more into the person's individual situation. Number one, are they mentally capable enough to stay where they are? Are they safe? Are they out of physical danger? Is there any current gaslighting, any emotional manipulation? Find out that. Do you have young kids in the house? Yada, yada. One of the things I have people do, and again, this is depending on where they are on the spectrum and where they are on the discovery, is to, when they are out of hijacked brain, which is difficult to get out of, especially initially, but I'll sit there and I'll even help work on this with them. One of the things I have people do is create what's called a lifeline list. And I have people, so listen, write down 3 people that you can call no matter what time it is if you need prayer. If you need prayer at 3:30 in the morning, who can you pick up the phone? Is it your pastor? Is it your mother? Is it, whatever?
Good advice.
Name 3 people that deliver food to your home. Name 3 people that you can call within a moment's notice, whether it's a neighbor or a friend, whatever, can be at your house to let you leave the house and make sure you got the kids. Because there's going to be times when you need to scream at the top of your lungs or punch your steering wheel, but you can't leave the kids in the house. There's going to be times when you're in a fetal position on your bed and you can't get up to make dinner. Your kids still have to be fed. So who can I call that's going to deliver in 20 minutes, for a dinner? So I have what's called a lifeline list, because once you're triggered, once you have like a trigger and your mind is hijacked and all you can do is being in the fetal position on your bed crying, you're not thinking, with your frontal cortex and all this. So you have now a visual, a list. Okay, this is the person I can call where I can do this. This is the person I can call. And it's your lifeline list, because a lot of people are just not, you can't think. Your brain is hijacked, especially in the beginning with certain triggers. Certainly one self-care. I mean, self-care is crucial and critical. But here's the challenge with that, Martine, is so many people have stepped so far away from themselves, they don't even know where to begin or start with self-care. What does self-care mean? Go to the beauty shop and get my hair done? Well, it can be that, but you know what? It also could mean just going in your bedroom for 5 minutes and saying, I don't want any disruptions. I need to breathe. I mean, self-care can, whatever. So, so depending on where they are on the spectrum, depending on, are they not getting any sleep? Are they drinking plenty of fluids? People discount the importance of fluids. When you're crying all day long, you're going to dehydrate yourself. You're going to dehydrate yourself. And if you dehydrate yourself, your organs cannot work at premium. So if your organs aren't going to work at premium, it's going to be a tax on everywhere else. You got to hydrate yourself. But the last thing people want to do is think, oh, did I drink my 8 hours, 8 glasses of thing, after they just discovered betrayal. That's the last thing they want to do, but you gotta, because you can easily dehydrate yourself, which will cascade into a bunch of negative other effects. So really it depends on, where somebody is on the line. And also, as we move forward, getting to know where people are and things like that, I really ask them a battery of questions, even down to what's your love language? Because, everybody's going to heal at a different pace and a different capacity in different ways. Hypothetically speaking, if your love language is gifts, right? And you found out that your husband was spending time on his lunch break with a coworker, right? And you knew it was kind of blurring lines. You would not like that. You would not like that at all. You would feel betrayed. You'd have a big, huge problem. But if you found out that every lunch break he was giving her a special gift and your love language is gifts, now you're pissed, because he's stealing what speaks love to you and giving it to someone else. So even down to the love language. The attachment style. What kind of attachment style does somebody have? Where on the sibling totem pole are you? Because different, if you're an elder sibling, you have different characteristics rather than the younger sibling. All these things will affect how and if you heal. So, I mean, it's not an easy road. It's not a short road in any capacity. And I'm sorry if people disagree with me. You never heal at all from trauma. You learn to live with it. You learn to live with it. I always tell people that, so in a sense you can heal, but I always tell people, think of it as like a bow and arrow. That arrow comes into your heart. Okay. Initially, it devastates it. There's blood pouring all over. It destroys it. It's, well, eventually what happens with time and the proper help and the proper work, there's a lot of work in this, which I always say, hard now, easy later. If you want it easy now, that's fine, but it's going to be hard later. So, but what happens is your heart starts to grow around that arrow, because you're never going to completely take that arrow out as if it was never there. That's not going to happen. It's going to be there. But what you do is you learn to build those muscles around the heart, where you can put on a shirt, and the stick that's sticking out of your heart that rubs against that arrow is not going to budge you much, because it's touching your heart, because you built muscles around it.
Right. Yeah, that's a very good analogy. And of course, it's like, we're never going to forget things that happen to us, but forgiveness, if that comes in,
Well, but here's the part with that too, though, is that what does forgiveness mean? Because if I line up 300 people and ask them what forgiveness means, I'm going to get 300 different answers.
That's true.
So you have to so you have to ask them, what does forgiveness mean to you? And let's work on that statement, on that example, because that's what's gonna help you. So many, there's so many people out there want to help people that are traumatized, and that's great, fine and dandy. But I want to help the particular person's trauma, which is a whole different story.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Because I know part of me and forgiveness, like, well, with the physical abuse part of my life, was just realizing my dad was doing the best he could, and he just didn't know what to do half the time, and I just happened to be his target. But he wasn't. He was born into a family where his dad married his mom because he thought she couldn't have kids. And then when he came along, that was the biggest disappointment. And he was told that he was the biggest disappointment. So him having children, he didn't know what to do. And he even told me, this is only like maybe 2 weeks ago, saying, I don't know how to love. He goes, I did love your mother, and I'm sorry I couldn't love you guys like I loved your mother. But I was never given love. And I said, well, Dad, but you were by Mom. I know that's not how you were started out, but you were given love. And I understand you now as an adult, but as a child, that was really hard. But it's just try to be and express now where you are now, and try to forgive that past as well.
Yeah. Do you mind if I ask how that statement made you feel? Because that's a statement many people do not ever hear from their fathers.
It hurts. I told him that. I said, Dad, it hurts to hear that, but I understand because of what he had himself. He told me years ago how his dad didn't want him, and he's told me many, many times since. He's 85. But yeah, it was rough, and I've just come to, sometimes I have friends that they've got great relationships with their dad, and it's really sweet to hear, and at the same time it's like, oh, I wish. But then at the same time it's like he can't, and I just got to love him where he's at, and he loves me how he can, and that's just the way it has to be.
Yeah, and sometimes we have to some people's love tank, their emotional gas tank, their love tank is only 2-gallon capacity, when ours is 10 gallons. We might need 10 gallons from our dad, and he might be he might completely be emptying all of his gas into your can, but it's just and he's giving his all, but it barely, makes the meter on yours, I always, as I'm sure it's if you do not heal the wounds of your past, you're going to bleed on everybody in your future.
I agree.
And growing up, my father, of course, that generation, corporal punishment was big. So my father would use corporal punishment. Every time he'd hit us, he'd always say, now come here and hug me. I love you. And I was like, I don't want to hug you. You just hit me. That's what. But listen, here's what's interesting. When I got older, and he said, Jay, listen, the reason I did that is because when my father hit me when I was younger, he'd say, now go in your bedroom, get away from me. You made me mad. I don't want you near me. He said, and I never wanted my children to feel like I didn't love them, even if I was mad. So then I had to understand, whoa, he actually was trying to combat any notion that I had that I wasn't loved after he had to discipline me. So, going through abnormal psych as an adult, or going through your genealogy and learning these things, it really helps you understand, which understanding sets the basis sometimes for forgiveness.
Right. When you said that about your dad hugging you afterwards, I remember my mom, she didn't stop him. And I just think she was afraid to be a parent of 3 and not being able to do it because she was a stay-at-home mom. And I remember her always coming in to hug me afterwards, and I was just stiff as it's like, don't even touch me, And it's interesting how my dad always said too, he goes, out of the 3 of you, you are the least loving. And I said, not really, but maybe when it comes to you and all that, maybe, because I don't know how to express it. I can't really be me with you, So Yeah, it's just it's interesting how like your dad, how he coped, how my dad coped. It's really interesting, and what you bring into your own parenting after what you've been through.
Yeah,
You
parenting
know.
oftentimes is on a pendulum. You're over here when you were younger, so because this
Yeah.
happened, you want to do this to your kids. Well, then you go
Yeah.
overboard with your kids, and then they go like that. So it's like, this pendulum.
That is a very good point. Boy, yeah. And I know your kids are very young, but I've apologized a lot. I have made some major mistakes, and I apologize. And I have, I remember getting married and thinking, well, my kids are not going to have the trauma that I did. Well, they didn't have the trauma that I did, but they had enough with the
Yeah.
divorce, different things. I still gave them stuff that I sure as heck didn't want to.
Yeah, no,
But
and we all
they
have. We
forgive.
all have.
Yeah,
Hurt people
yeah,
hurt people,
they
and
do.
and even though we never want anything bad for our kids in any capacity, we're still human beings where we're dealing with
Yes.
struggles in relationships, struggles financially. We get fired from jobs, we get into a car accident, and our kids often see that we're human and we don't make the best, decisions from that. I have started apologizing to my kids. As a matter of fact, the other day, and I don't know if we got to go to a break, but the other day I was taking out trash with my son, and he lifted up the top of the trash bin, and I didn't realize it, but it fell and it hit the bin. And I have CPTSD, so loud noises like
Oh gosh. Yeah.
um, um, so um, so the like, what happened? What happened? And was like, oh my God, who are you? What are you doing? And I wound up having to apologize to him. And I said, buddy, Papa has what's called, CPTSD, and this is what it is. And, yada, yada, yada. So, yeah, I know at a young age, and then you spend the rest of your life trying to unlearn it or heal it.
For sure. For sure. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with some final thoughts. Thank you, everyone. Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martine, where my guest, Mr. J, has been talking about betrayal trauma and all kinds of good tips on how to get through it. And so for the rest of the show, he was going to give us some of his best tips and also maybe talk just a bit about trusting your gut over your head or your heart.
Oh, geez. Okay. I'll do my best to give you some tips. But I don't know if they're the best, because what one person considers a best tip, the next person will say that's common sense, but I'll do my best.
Okay.
So one thing I want to say is I always tell people, especially that say, how could I be so stupid? How could I be so stupid? Because a lot of times what happens is after you discover a betrayal, and again, I'm using examples from a spouse, but really you can have a betrayal from a child, a parent, a boss, a neighbor. A betrayal can be even a school, a church pastor. I mean, or we can even have a betrayal from ourselves. How many times do you hear people that, hey, I exercised and I meditated and I drank all the juices and I did all that, and I like God betrayed them or what have you. So betrayal trauma comes in all forms and things. But I always say you got to be careful with in life in general. To do your best to trust your gut even over your heart and your mind, because your heart can manipulate you and your mind can play tricks on you, but your gut works on a different level, so it can't lie to you. And some people say, well, what's the difference between trusting your gut and trusting your ego? And I always say, your gut is more like a bullet point thing. It'll give you like pictures. It's short spurts of things. Your ego gives you these long sentences and paragraphs, and it's usually more negative and stuff. So that's how oftentimes you can tell, well, what is my mind, my heart, or my ego, and what is my gut? And keep in mind, your gut is often completely different from what your friends are saying or what your ego is saying. But going back to the when people say, how could I be so stupid? That's something that, we call betrayal blindness. Some people call it the Red Riding Hood syndrome. Red Riding Hood wanted to go see her grandmother so bad. She just wanted to see her grandmother, to the point where when she walked into her grandmother's house, she knew she saw big teeth. Her grandmother didn't have big, sharp teeth. She saw the long nose. She saw the big eyes, but she wanted to see her grandmother so much that she decided, I'm not going to turn around and run, scream. I'm still going to stay there. And what happened? She got eaten. She got ate. So what happens is that sometimes after we discover some type of betrayal, all of a sudden our eyes open, like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. What I knew when A, B, and C, why didn't I react on it? Well, sometimes what happens is on a whole physiological level and psychological level, oftentimes betrayal trauma, what happens is it's our mind and our body's way of actually not wanting to see the truth, because we'll know the profound damage and the complete change in our life that will happen if we face the truth. So it's just easier to be in this blind state of being. That's called betrayal blindness, which, like I said, not to beat a dead horse, how many times afterwards I say, you know what, how could I be so stupid? I saw a number in his wallet. I decided I'm not going to question him. Why didn't I question him? How stupid can I be? Well, you got to be careful with your internal dialogue, because you were duped. You were betrayed. You didn't act on that because you gave somebody the benefit of the doubt based on the written or unwritten rules of the relationship, which are you keep your stuff in your pants, Other than that, and I see we got a couple more minutes. Other than that, what I tell people in life, and I'm going to just kind of go back and forth to my intrapersonal relationship coaching and my betrayal trauma tips and techniques. This is more of an intrapersonal thing. One of the reasons so many people I think have unnecessary communication conflict in their life is because we expect so much from others of ourselves. So how many times do you catch yourself in the daytime when you're interacting with someone? Common sense says, blah, blah. Well, that's not common to the other person. That's common sense to you, So you can't expect you from other people. That's one of the, and we all do that. Even down to, if I spend the night like at a friend's house or a family's house, I'll get up and sometimes I'll hide like a $10 bill somewhere in their bookcase or under their mattress or, under the bed that I'm sleeping on. And because I know that someday, whether it's within the hour after I leave, or maybe it's 10 years down the road, they're going to find that $10 and it's going to bring them some kind of joy. Well, that brings me joy.
Yeah.
But I don't expect people that spend the night at my house to leave me $10. So I don't, so you can't expect others, you from other people. And another thing too that I say, and this goes back to now betrayal trauma, is nobody in the history of mankind ever died from a snake bite. No one ever. Right. What people die from is when the venom gets into your bloodstream, goes up to your heart and affects your heart. Well, the same happens with pain and suffering. People are going to give us pain. If you're on this earth, you're going to get pain from people. That's a given. However, it's your responsibility to stop the suffering. And you got to stop the suffering before it gets into your bloodstream, gets into your heart, jades you, robs you of happiness, turns you into that Grinch, that monster. So other people give you pain, you're the one that's in charge of your suffering.
Absolutely. That's true. We get to choose every day. The day we're going to have, the life we're going to have. Are we going to fulfill our purpose, or are we just going to shrink down? Because like one of the examples I've always been given is like, it's really quiet up here. People don't take the time to get up here, to do the work to get up here. There's very few people up here. Everybody else is just kind of staying at this one spot because they're not willing to look at their past, and they're not willing to find the blessings and the lessons.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I'm going to tell you something which a lot of people might disagree with me on. This is my own theory. I think one of the big reasons why depression and suicide and anxiety skyrocketed during the pandemic is because it forced people to stay home and do nothing but evaluate their life.
Oh, I tendency
people
to agree
didn't
with that
like
one.
what they saw in the mirror.
Yep. We were all
that's
forced
a good
to look at ourselves. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Even us in the world of personal development, even being around our spouses, our kids being around and everything, boy, that was some challenge. I'm used to my husband going to work, and when he was here, it wasn't easy.
Hey, have you gotten yet from your kids, don't life coach me?
Yes.
Yeah, I get that now from my 10-year-old. Holy
oh
Lord.
Man, I will often, I know that you're not going to listen to me like this. However, I've got a colleague you can talk to, my friend, Mr. J, because it's going to be coming from a different source, not just mom or dad.
Yeah, I know. I'm not sure how much time we have, but I will quickly say,
1
speaking
minute.
of my son,
Yep.
you know, I've been telling, go ahead.
I said we just
You
have
wait a
1
minute?
minute. Yeah.
Oh,
Go ahead.
I've been telling my son for a long time about, you know, how he's pre-puberty
Mhm.
and all the changes that are going to happen. And I've been telling him, you know, about you know, you're going to start getting hair on your body and your voice is going to
Mhm.
drop. And I've been telling him for so long. But what I didn't tell him, and I feel so bad, was all of the emotional and psychological changes that, you know,
Mm.
your amygdala is growing at a double the rate of your frontal cortex. So if you get all of a sudden you get upset, don't think you're a bad person. It's because part of your brain is growing at double the speed and rapid rate of your, you know, logical brain. So I think that's one thing we don't really get into when it comes to talking to kids about puberty, and something we should.
I agree with you 100%. So we've got just a few seconds left. Where can everybody find you?
Oh, everybody can find me my website, mrjrelationshipcoach.com. Simple as that. I got all kinds of free YouTube clips, free resources. You can find all my handles there, mrjrelationshipcoach.com. Thank you, Martine.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. This has been an awesome conversation. I know we can keep going. Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us. And we will see you back here next week, 1 p.m. Eastern every Friday. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Transformation with Martine. Did listening today spark a sense of hope and possibility? Hold on to this feeling and tune in every second and fourth Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific for more inspiring conversations with Martine and her guests. They will show you there is hope, and you are right where you need to be. Martine is dedicated to supporting you right where you are while launching you towards promise, passion, and possibility that leads to the fulfilled life your heart aches for. If you're tired of being stuck, schedule a complimentary consultation with Martine and get on the exciting path towards the life you want to be living. Visit martineemmons.com and make your appointment today.